welcome Fashion. We're so glad that you are with us today. We're doing something really interesting. We're actually filming while we podcast. So welcome podcast listeners to Fashion Radio and welcome Fashion YouTube followers to Fashion Magazine. Something that's really prevalent today is, it's a newer thing and it's kind of a trend. It's a show that probably a lot of you have heard of called 13 Reasons Why, and with an executive producer with Selena Gomez. And it's just something that's really hot right now, especially among the now gen, the next gen, the teen market. And, we don't hold all of the keys, and Fashion Magazine isn't here to say that we're going to change all of the world, although we would like to hope that we can at least make a dent in some way. But we do have very clear opinions on how we feel about this show. This particular topic, 13 Reasons Why, is dealing with suicide. And so I've invited these special women. They're all a part of the Fashion Magazine team and staff. And so ladies, go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then let's just get right into it.
I'm Jennifer.
I'm Carrie. I'm a preschool teacher, and I joined the team quite recently, and I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
And I'm Edna. I do a lot of nonprofit humanitarian work.
I'm Ashlyn, and I work with operations with Fashion Magazine, as well as a lot of junior high engagement.
So let's delve right into the topic about 13 Reasons Why. Have any of you seen it? How do you feel about it? Thoughts about it? Jump right in.
Yeah, I've definitely seen the entire series. At first, I didn't really want to watch it because the last thing I wanted to do was get addicted to another series that I was going to binge watch instead of doing homework.
Yep.
So watched it. As soon as I finished finals, I was like, great, now I can just watch this. Everybody's been talking about it. A friend told me, it's the most accurate show she's seen that really displayed what high school is really like. It didn't have a lot of the cheese factor. So I watched it, and I feel like the first few weeks that it came out, there was a lot of positive buzz about it. But then a month down the road, a few more months down the road, I don't even know if it's been out that long, it really kind of flipped. It seemed to be more negative of an impact once the long term came around. I don't know if you guys kind of saw that as well.
Mm-hmm. I watched the first 20 minutes of it, and I honestly had to turn it off just because personally there was a darkness for me in that I didn't want to continue watching it.
Yeah.
I tried watching it again last night, and I was just like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
But I did do a lot of research on it. I do understand what the show's about. I get where the producers that are coming, and I've spoken to a lot of my friends who actually work in suicide prevention and all that kind of stuff, and so I have different opinions on it. So I tried watching it.
Yeah, mine was kind of the same. I got through most of it, but then I kind of had to turn it off as well. After a while, I just started getting agitated and just I felt like this series had such a good chance of being very good because of how heavy this topic is in our society right now. And I feel like it just totally missed the mark. It had some good, I think it was a good teen drama, but when you're dealing with such a heavy topic, it was just very irresponsible how they did it.
I think my thought about it is just, there's already stuff that people deal with that they're already struggling with. And really, to me, they're trying to make suicide glamorous. They're trying to make it look like it's this beautiful, romantic thing. I know you lost somebody that you loved very dearly.
This year, one of my youth girls, it was in January, that the mom had contacted me, and I didn't ask too much. She seemed like she just right now needs her time and didn't want to talk too much about it, but this little girl had just turned 14 years old, and I don't know all the details. I know I could see how someone who had a troubled teen life, being bullied and all of that, how if they're introduced to something like this, like you say, they can glamorize it. And a lot of times it's those kids, they're just trying to get attention and they just want to kind of try something to see if it can take them almost to that point. And I know because I dealt with depression and I used to think about that. I hope something happens to me, not to where it totally kills me, but enough to where I could see that I'm loved and that people would hurt if something happened to me.
Interesting.
So I can see how that, would trigger someone to think, well, I'm going to try this. And obviously that's a child, they're 14. They don't know. But I also work with kids. I work in an orthodontic office, and I'm amazed at how many kids, we call for the appointment, and the moms will announce, I'm sorry, they're no longer coming. They committed suicide. And they are about 14, 15 is the age that we're getting. I had learned last year from one of our patients of something called cocktail. You guys heard of that? Where what the kids will do is they'll take all kinds, they'll go to the medicine cabinet, take all this stuff, put it in the middle, and just mix it and drink it. And it's just, it's awful. And they're playing games this way. And
Wow.
yeah, so that's why the mom said it was an accidental type of a suicide. So I'm just floored at all the different things. I can't believe there's a show that, is out there. So I did read about it and how it's almost waking up that with people that already have certain struggles of, well, am I loved? Am I important? Will anyone care if I'm gone? And again, I know I can relate with that because I used to do the same thing, just what could I do that would, just draw attention so that I could know that I'm important, that I am loved. But Edna, you said that you couldn't watch it any longer. Was there something in particular that stood out?
I think because the truth is, like, Hollywood's not stupid. They know what they're putting out.
Absolutely.
They know what to do. They know what markets well. And I'm a part of this group of like thousands of women in Los Angeles, and we all talk about certain things. And so I put a thing out there, and I asked about it. I asked, like, what's your guys' opinions on 13 Reasons Why? And again, there's people that work in suicide prevention. There's people who have had that happen to them, like within families. And one of the biggest things that someone said was that they had worked in suicide prevention for 6 years, and the show's writers and producers met with the leading experts on how the media contributes to suicide.
Interesting.
And so they asked, and again, I don't know if this is 100% true, but I read two things on it, that they did ask, the show writers did ask people in suicide prevention, like, what, we want to make it seem really real. But the people were saying, like, don't put that out there. And so it was still
Suicide prevention said not to put it out there.
Yeah. And again, I might be misquoting it, but that's what I was told. And they still did the complete opposite of what they were told not to do. And so Hollywood knows what it's doing.
Right.
They know what they're selling. And I'm completely opposed to this. And, rape and suicide are the two things that I'm completely against. Like, I won't, I'm not for it in any sense of the word.
Right.
So when it comes down to those things, because I have family who have been so affected by suicide and by rape and by all these different components, that I'm not going to play my cards in the middle of it.
Right.
And so when I look at a show like this, and I think, if I had a little sister or a daughter or a son or whatever who was watching this show, and I know that they struggled with dark thoughts, I know that they struggled with wanting to commit suicide, why would I purposely let my child watch this show, knowing that it can trigger and it can awaken something in them that doesn't need to be awakened?
That's it.
And it's like, I was talking to my best friend, like, if you're sad, you shouldn't listen to sad songs. It's gonna make you sad.
Yeah.
Like, way more sad, And so I kind of wish that the producers, knowing what they know, would have put, instead of, because I read at the end of it, and this is totally spoiler, but that she does commit suicide, and she commits suicide, like she does.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, it shows it, and it's graphic. Apparently, I couldn't get to that part.
It's very
So
Wow.
I almost wish that the producers and the writers would have taken something that they know was going to affect people so heavily and twisted it and said, if you need help, this is what you should do instead.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Instead of glamorizing it.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
it was educating in the wrong way. Instead of getting help, it was educating how to get to a place that you should never get to. And we were talking about this earlier, it's rated mature audience, like you pointed out. So why do we hear, I work with junior hires, that's all they talk about. My best friend's little brother is 14 and he's seen the whole thing, and it's all him and his friends talk about. And like you said, like, as a parent, you wouldn't want your kids watching that. And to me, if I were a parent, I'm not, but if I were, and I had known what 13 Reasons Why was, I wouldn't let my child watch it. So this makes me think that most parents don't know what their children are watching, and most parents are letting Netflix raise their children.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is today. And that's really not okay, number one. But number two, the fact that that fact has been manipulated by Hollywood. You're right, Edna, they're not stupid. They're putting out what's going to sell because children and teenagers and all the way to young adults are really eager to know the truth and to know something raw and to something real. And I feel like, especially my generation, I'm 20, and when I was younger, I think I was fed a lot of fluff. So now my generation is starving for something raw and something like really vulnerable. And that's definitely what the show gives you, but it's not the truth. You know, it's definitely a lie. A lot of my generation is believing that, you know, the whole concept is, you know, she commits suicide in the beginning, and then the rest of the series is basically flashbacks onto 13, you know, points, reasons, people, why she committed suicide. And the fact of the matter is, you can go through all that and there is still hope, and that show doesn't say that. That show says there was no hope, and this is exactly when you should give up, and it pinpoints, if these happen to you, you should commit suicide.
Wow.
And that's not the truth, because there is always hope.
That's
you know,
right.
We believe that there's never, ever, ever a point to where there's no hope and that you should give up. Because that show shows I wasn't loved here, so this is what it should be, and that is not the truth. So I think that's what my generation's being fed. People younger than me are being fed, and we don't know everything, and we don't know how to navigate that at all. And if the parents aren't knowing what these kids are watching, how are they supposed to guide them through this? How are they supposed to teach them? And I completely understand the necessity of knowing these problems. There should be an awareness, absolutely.
Yes.
But that's not what this show did. There were warnings, you know, at the, you know, this actual episode where she commits suicide, there were warnings. That doesn't justify it at all. That it was almost a courtesy. It wasn't, you know, it was just not okay.
I feel like also the show was huge on revenge. You know, she put out these tapes before she actually did it, and she says in the very first episode, "You guys are the reasons why I did this."
Right.
And it was like, whoa, like,
Wow.
it's like you completely put the blame on other people. And I don't know, I mean, I've never dealt with depression before. I was telling you this. I've never had that. I mean, I've probably had hints of it here and there, but I've never fully dealt with that before. But, you know, I've talked to people who have dealt with it, and most of the people that I've talked to, you know, the problem they say is me. You know, I'm the problem. I'm this. You know, I did this or I did that. And the whole show is, he did this to me. She did this to me. You do this. And then one of the episodes was she was telling all of the people listening to the tapes to throw a rock through a guy's window because he stalked her. And it was like, what is that? Like, what is that doing? Only to get the guy who did this to you. It was like revenge. Is pretty much all it was.
And at the end, spoiler alert, he committed suicide.
Right.
She caused another suicide by casting blame
Wow.
and bullying again. And it hit on more than suicide. It hit on bullying, it hit on rape, it hit on stalking, it hit on even just being ignored. It hit a lot of things.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of triggers in that for people.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of triggers.
Oh, yeah. And I think another thing that kind of just I just angered me about this series was the book. Her suicide isn't even in the show. She slits her wrist. In the book, she takes pills, and so it was like, how do we make this more graphic? Why did we need to make this more graphic?
Right.
Or even like I think I was telling you about it, the rape scenes in this were way too long and it exposed way too much. And it's such a, especially because they, like everybody was saying, you know, they know their target audience. I mean, you have a hot cast, you have really good music, you have plots that are in high school. You know, everybody, you know, when we were in high school watched like One Tree Hill or one things like that. So kids are always watching, you know, young adults doing these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then it's like, let's put this in there. Let's just add all this and then make it super long and super triggering. And it's just like, whoa. And then, you know, to think like, because like I said, I never dealt with that before. To think of somebody who is dealing with this and they see that, it's kind of like, oh, almost kind of like an idea. Or if they maybe have gotten over it, like it's bringing this back. Yeah, the show has a lot of triggering points that just shouldn't have been there. They just missed so much that could have they could have touched on the topic of mental illness. They could have touched on the topic of, you know, these are the signs
How
to
to
look for
get
as
help.
parents.
Yeah.
When
And
your
I
kids
think
are going
that's
through
like
this.
why Hollywood has such a responsibility, and like we look to Hollywood, and so they have the biggest responsibility. They have this almost weight on their shoulders to like carry us towards a better direction. You know, like you're saying, it should have been, you know, like let's talk about mental health. You know, let's talk about all these different things, and like that. Like I love Hollywood. I love the people in Hollywood, but you know, y'all have a responsibility.
Yeah,
you know,
They do.
and you know, you can lead people so easily, and I think it's their responsibility to like lead us the right way. you
Yeah.
know?
I know they were saying that they wanted just to make an awareness so that, you know, should there be these signs, then it's like, oh, maybe this person is struggling or dealing with that because they're, you know, they have this sign or depression or they're leaving hints or whatever. So what would we say, like, so someone's listening right now or someone's watching right now and somebody's dealing with suicidal thoughts or somebody's dealing really heavily with depression, obviously talk to somebody about it, but what are some other things that you think could help somebody in that who's listening? They're going, this show was a trigger for me. I don't even need a trigger because I already think this way anyway.
Right. I know for me, I just talking, reaching out to somebody, not just sitting there and letting those thoughts come in. And, you know, something that I caught when you were saying this was very graphic. I know for me, there's been movies, it's like when they're graphic, it's disturbing. And when it's disturbing, I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
And so that's like a hook, you know? And so if you find yourself where you're entertaining these thoughts and you're replaying, that's almost like you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in the wrong path right now. Like my mind has just has been set on a course
Right.
that could lead me to that place where, because I've been there, where all of a sudden, I'm like, why am I even here? I mean, what is it? I mean, there's no point. I mean, life is too hard. Everywhere I turn, it seems like it's a dead end, which, you know, people also, they don't understand the spiritual aspect of it. The
Right.
portals that are being opened
Right.
spiritually, you know what I mean? With this
Right.
demonic activity that's just whispering all of
Right.
these words into you. And it almost feels like you get kind of, I always felt like it was like something wrapped around me.
Interesting.
And like I just couldn't, my reality was just up to here and I couldn't see beyond that. So when you get to that place, reach out, talk to somebody, anybody, and just say, hey, you know what, I'm feeling really low right now, and
Yeah.
I can't think past this thought and that thought, and I can't stop thinking about this or thinking about that, and definitely always reaching out to God and calling on Him.
Yes.
God, I know you're real. And, you know, I've had friends, so many testimonies of women who, or, you know, kids who didn't know if God was real, but said, God, if you're real, be seen in my life, like show me. And He, every single time the testimony, He always came through. So calling out, because, you know, when you speak that out, there's this, it's a rippling effect that is now transcending, you know what I mean? And it's going into that spiritual realm. It's almost like putting a stop to the spiritual, the dark spiritual, and calling in really the power of God into your life that's going to manifest and come through and break through, because obviously life is sacred, you know, to God. And so that's exactly why the enemy has all these tools that he's putting out to be able to detour people from what's sacred and beautiful, and the, you know, that God gave His Son for that, for exactly that, for life and life more abundantly. And so, and you have to stop and see what the enemy's doing, the plan that he has you on. Very recently, I was talking to this woman who was going through a divorce. They ended up getting back together, but she ended up finding this piece of paper that said, run her out of money, get her credit to be completely threatened. He had a plan of her total destruction so that he wouldn't have to give her a dime, so that he had this whole scheme. And when she was telling me, it just triggered, and I thought, isn't that just the way the enemy is? Like, he has a plan for everybody. Run them to the ground, do this, block them there, you know, bully them here, cause problems over here, so that everything feels like, well, life would just be better than if I just checked out right now. And so, again, when those thoughts are so heavy, that's when you need to just look up. Just, if the only thing you can say is Jesus, then reach out and say Jesus, and watch Him come through for you. Again, I lived that, and And I know every time there was always either a knock at my door when I was in my room and my mom coming in and, saying like, you want to go for a walk or something? I mean, just the way that the Lord always sent someone.
That's good.
So reaching out, don't just sit there and let it fester in there, because I think it will take you to, like I said, this woman who there was a plan that this man had written against her for her ultimate just destruction. So you have to realize that there is someone out to get you. There really is. But there's someone stronger.
That's
He
right.
will reach out and he will back you with every resource. He will rescue you and he will show you your purpose and why you are here, because everything that God does is intentional and there's a reason for you. There's a plan for you, and it's a good plan. So don't let the enemy rob you
That's
of
good.
that.
Anybody else?
I think like just speaking, not because I've ever been through it, so I'm not even going to pretend to like tell people what to do, but to stand in a place of like seeing it happen around me, to close people, to children, to all that stuff, I would say like the thing that I know, so for the person that sees other people struggling with it, is be present in their lives. That's the biggest key, and then help them understand that it's okay to get help, because I think a lot of the times getting help looks like a weakness, or like that they feel weak, but getting help is absolutely key, whether that means you talk to your therapist or you talk to your psychologist, whatever that looks like, just get help and encourage them to be okay with that and to not be ashamed of it, I was walking actually down the street right here like 6 or 7 years ago, and I was literally just walking to Starbucks, and I just had this like feeling to talk to this lady who was sitting at the bus stop, and so I was like, hey, how are you doing? And then she's like, I'm okay. And I was like, okay, like tell me more about it. So I sat down with her and then talked to her for like a while, and then she's like, I always feel like someone comes into my life just before I'm about to jump in front of a bus as it's like coming by. And so being present is the biggest thing, and not and I guess I would just leave it with this, because I think that this is the most crucial thing, is don't listen to reply, listen to understand. So you never have to actually say anything, but just listening to people, listening to the person who's struggling with something is the biggest thing you can do.
So good.
I think piggybacking off of that, saying the same thing, listening for me is most important.
Yeah.
When somebody's going through something, just be there, listen to them. And like you said, you don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
Just be there and let them just kind of vent to you.
Yeah.
Let them say what they need to say. Because also going off of what you said, it's good to let that out. And if somebody's always trying to give you advice, you don't really want to say anything, because sometimes you don't want advice. You just want to talk. And so I think it's important to just let it out, and then it's also important to just listen to what
Yeah,
people have
because
to
like
say.
you said, you've never struggled with that. So sometimes someone trying to tell you and you're like, how do you know?
Right.
And I remember
absolutely.
feeling that way so many times. Like, you have no idea how much this kills. So definitely just listening and just loving that person
Yeah.
is what that in itself will bring healing. Absolutely. So
Good.
yeah, thank you for saying that. Absolutely. Listening and checking up on them, and all those things will pry that person out of that grip that they're in. So yeah,
It's good.
You're true. I kind of just highlighted in my head when you said, we do have an enemy, and he does have a plan out there, but God's is bigger. God's will take priority. I have seen too many friends kind of put their fate in the hands of the world and just the natural ways of life. Kind of like the show, the girl Hannah, she says, if this happens, then I'll do this. If this happens, then I'll do this. After the 13th time when her counselor at school, takes a phone call or doesn't pay attention, doesn't follow up, doesn't follow her out the door, that's when she decided, and that's when she left her fate up to the enemy. At that point, the world won't take care of us. Seek help in the right areas, your friends, your family. If your family does not know what's going on, you're in your family for a reason. God put you in your family for a reason. If you don't have family, God has surrounded you with people who might not be related to you, but are your family. And that's true for everybody, that God provides people.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I would say just keep that in mind. There's hope, and the moment you decide, if I don't find this, then I'll commit suicide. That's when you've let the plan of the enemy win.
Yeah.
Because he'll just take that opportunity. But God's plan's so much bigger, so refuse to give up.
Yeah.
He has a plan, so that's what I would say.
Anyone else have anything they want to add before we wrap up? I think a lot of good points here. And, just even on a practical note, how Edna was saying, if you're sad, don't listen to sad music. And I was just even thinking, like, for me, I know that happy songs or things that generate joy, that's just a practical note. I mean, those things, you could be in a funk and you could be feeling depressed or down or discouraged, and then you might hear a song like Happy or something like that actually puts a little pep in your step and kind of brings a little smile to your face. But even more than that, for me personally, are the songs where there's victory. I could just be crying or have a bad day, and I don't deal with a lot of depression, but I do have my bad days. And then I'll hear a song that'll have, I'm like, yeah, that's right. And I start, and then before you know it, my whole attitude, my whole thought process has changed and it has shifted. And so, just being careful to not just add more fuel to that fire, but let's put that fire out with something that's going to generate and pull you out of this very dark place. Because we're never meant to go through things alone. And that's the other thing. It's like a man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. That's exactly the ploy of the enemy, is to put you all by yourself and it's a lie. The Bible says that he's the father of lies and there's no truth in him. And that he doesn't come except for to still kill and destroy. So when you have these negative thoughts and you feel like you're alone, and all of a sudden, wait a minute, these are lies. Well, that means that the exact opposite is true. That's what I have to say. You said this, that means the opposite is true. We hope that this has encouraged you, that it's given you a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of insight. We will have more in our next issue, so be on the lookout for that. And I don't know if at the end of 13 Reasons Why, if it has this or not, but if you are someone struggles with depression or has mentioned suicide, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Line, 1-800-273-8255, or from your phone, you can just text HOME, the word HOME, and the number that you would text HOME to is 741-741. So we love you. You are loved. You are of value. You are important. There's something that only you have in you that is supposed to contribute to this world. And anything that tells you otherwise is a lie. And so we love you. We're here for you. Feel free to call, reach out to us, email us, and we will be sure to get right back to you. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us today on Fashion Radio and on Fashioned Magazine. Bye-bye.